Happy Friday and welcome back to this week's episode of Sports Corner. I'm Cole Young and I'll jump right in. Last week, I mentioned that Week 10 of the NFL was a little on the boring side. Week 11 made up for it though, with upsets, last-second wins, and the flair and drama that football fans love to see. The excitement started off last Thursday when we had an absolute shootout between two heated rivals, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. Ja'Marr Chase led the way for Cincinnati, finishing his night with 11 catches for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns, including a 5-yarder in the final minute to bring the Bengals within 1 point. But 3 fourth-quarter touchdown passes from Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson and a failed 2-point conversion by the Bengals were too much for Cincy to overcome, and the Ravens held on to win 35-34. Here's a sentence I didn't think I would say this NFL season, or the last one, or even next one. The Carolina Panthers are on a 2-game winning streak after picking up an overtime win over the Giants on Sunday after the game-winning field goal. Speaking of game-winning field goals, the Denver Broncos were in prime position to upset the Kansas City Chiefs and hand them their first loss of the season. With 1 second on the clock, Broncos kicker Will Lutz set up to kick the game-winning field goal. The Chiefs' defensive line bullied through the Denver front line, blocked the kick, and somehow continued their undefeated season. Almost the exact same scenario happened in the 49ers-Buccaneers matchup, but San Francisco kicker Jake Moody redeemed himself on a day where he missed 3 field goals as he hit the one that mattered most, the game winner. And lastly, in a game where Jared Goff threw a whopping 5 interceptions on Sunday night, the #1 overall Detroit Lions still managed to find a way to win over the Texans and improve to 8-1. With 10 out of 18 weeks down, the playoffs are slowly coming up on the horizon. Every win and loss is crucial, and I expect we'll see a few teams mathematically eliminated from playoff contention in the coming weeks. The playoff picture hasn't changed all that much, except for the Commanders dropping a few spots after their last-second loss to the Steelers. Luckily, I didn't pick the Commanders last week, but I did pick the Bears, who had a rough game and were upset by the Patriots. That was my only loss of the week, though, bringing me to 24-8 on the season. This was also my 100th career win in the few years of doing these picks. Hopefully, I can make it to 104 this week. For Week 11, I'll go with the Miami Dolphins over the Raiders, the Vikings over the Titans, the Houston Texans to beat the Dallas Cowboys on Monday night, and the Packers to roll past their division rival Bears. Speaking of the Dolphins, they saved the state of Florida from a tragic sports weekend when they beat the Rams on Monday night. Heading into that game, the state of Florida was 0-11 in football. Over the weekend in the FBS, FAU, Florida, Miami, FSU, USF, and UCF all lost. In the FCS, FAMU, Bethune, and Stetson all lost. And in the NFL on Sunday, the Jaguars and the Buccaneers lost. Luckily, like I said, the Dolphins saved the state from a completely winless weekend. Like I said, the University of Miami was upset this week by Georgia Tech. The Hurricanes entered this game as the #4 team in the country and were looking at a playoff run. However, this loss bumped them down to #9. The other major upset of the week was another top 5 team being knocked down the ladder. The red-hot #16 Ole Miss hosted the #3 Georgia Bulldogs on Saturday, and Ole Miss defended their home turf, walking away with a 28-10 win. Ole Miss jumped up to the #11 seed, while Georgia fell all the way down to 12, on the cusp of not even making the playoffs at all. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, and Penn State make up the current top 4. Georgia will look to bounce back this week and get one step closer to the playoffs, but in their way stands #7 Tennessee. This game will kick off in Athens, Georgia, tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. on ABC. Like I said last week, every single game counts from here on out, so teams need to scratch and claw for their wins and earn their spots in the postseason. Possibly the biggest events of this weekend are both combat sports. For the first time since June of 2005, Iron Mike Tyson is returning to the boxing ring for a sanctioned fight. Tyson will fight Jake Paul in an 8-round heavyweight bout tonight at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. This fight will be streamed on Netflix at 5 p.m., so if you already have a Netflix subscription, it'll be free and available in a few short hours. The last time the 58-year-old Mike Tyson fought in an official bout, he suffered a 6th-round TKO to Kevin McBride. Mike Tyson's heavyweight championship reign began when he won the WBC title over Trevor Berbick back in November of 1986. I'm sure I don't need to tell you that he was one of the most dominant and feared boxers in all of history. After that first title, for the next 3+ years, Tyson earned a record of 10-0 with 9 knockouts and unified all the title belts and became the undisputed champion. He landed 16.3 of 34.5 punches per round, which is 47.2%, nearly 15% higher than the heavyweight division average. Throughout his career, Tyson went 50-6 with a terrifying 44 knockouts. His opponent is Jake Paul, a former YouTube star that turned to professional boxing. He currently has a 10-1 record with 7 knockouts, although it's worth noting that most of his opponents have been other YouTube stars mixed in with a few former UFC fighters. However, Jake Paul is just 27 years old. To have a better sense of the age difference, when Paul was born in January of 1997, Tyson was already a 30-year-old champion with a record of 45-2 and 39 knockouts. There are a few stipulations that are slightly different than a regular heavyweight match, though. Their fight will be contested with 2-minute rounds and with 14-ounce gloves. Heavyweight boxing matches are regularly contested at 3-minute rounds with 10-ounce gloves. Regardless of the stipulations or even the outcome, it'll be incredible to watch Mike Tyson fight in the ring yet again. Reminder, this fight is tonight at 5 p.m. on Netflix. The other combat sport, the UFC, is back this weekend with a massive event. That fight card, UFC 309, takes place tomorrow. The pay-per-view event is headlined by a matchup between current UFC heavyweight champion Jon Jones and former 2-time UFC heavyweight title holder Stipe Miocic. The evening's co-main event is the rematch between former UFC lightweight champion Charles Oliveira and 3-time Bellator champ Michael Chandler. Before those two matchups take place, UFC middleweight contender Bo Nickel looks to continue his charge up the rankings against veteran UFC competitor Paul Craig. UFC 309 takes place at Madison Square Garden in New York City tomorrow, with the prelims starting at 7 p.m. The pay-per-view card streams on ESPN+. The second annual NBA in-season tournament tipped off on Tuesday this week. If you forgot about this still brand new tournament, don't worry, you're not alone. As a reminder, the Los Angeles Lakers took home the first ever championship cup last season. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has had a long-standing fascination with European soccer. The idea for having an in-season cup competition within the NBA schedule comes from soccer leagues having both a regular season title, which is won by the team with the most points over the full year, and a separate tournament, or in some leagues, multiple tournaments, that run concurrently with the league season. Anyway, for the NBA, the 30 teams were split into 6 5-team groups, 3 featuring Eastern Conference teams, and 3 comprising teams from the West, with each team then playing 1 game against the other 4 in their group. Games will be played on Tuesdays and Fridays. The winner of each group, plus the team with the best record among the non-group winners, will then advance to the knockout rounds. From there, it's a basic single elimination tournament format. The knockout rounds will begin on Tuesday, December 10th, with the championship game on Tuesday, December 17th. So be sure to tune in for games tonight, as well as on Tuesday, to see which teams will continue to advance throughout the tournament. So, with all of that said, we've got NFL, college football, boxing, UFC, NBA tournaments, NHL, college basketball, and so much more to enjoy this weekend. Be sure to tune in to as much as you can throughout the weekend, and come right back next Friday for more news, updates, and highlights. Thank you as always for tuning in. I'm Cole Young, and we'll see you next week.